Gela ja zelo gombo tuji jenen ba tamje gembe domba wo sona yende jazo shin de jen gela ja zo tabe de ja trevor gyu gewe nyen zon le zhen chidu de dan ju ju ba shi gyu gela ja zelo rone rove la ya Labo dala radune shinge dambo yende yendu laya cha zalo deva chiyam meja sing yewa puzum sobar gyu rangi sene yonsu du tene sangye demba yi karma rare marmeda gyuma seva chuvurda melan lodan tento Düzce cedan didirta sonan diye tamce zibayi govan dole gengi radı gadana çive lakule sibe sole ruvara şo.
Page 3, to the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, Lord of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When the supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you faced out 7 strides, and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then I prostrate. With pure bodies, formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to that dharma which pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path of liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, the sublime community intending for virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see condition, things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by waves of aging, sickness, and death.
Pāpa gujo sōla chā sēlo dīgē tāgē tōpa tūjī chūndēn tē jābū gā jābū gōmbō rē lō gē mōjī gēndū jēmbō dāng jāñchū sēmbē gēndū jēmbō dāng tā chīdō shūdō tē sē chōndēn tē sāmō nāwā shē jāwē chūgē nāng tēngē zēlā nyōmbō rē shūsō yāng tē sē jāñchū sēmbā sēmbā jēmbō pāpa shē sē wāñchū ye parudu chenpa samu chepa nila nambara tashi kumbu ngabu deda laya rashi je tombara nambara tawu tene sanje je tu setan denpa sheri bu chanju senpa senpa chenpo baba chere onju la dige je meso riji ku gala la shera je parudu chenpa samu chepa chepa deba de jidar labar cha dige je mepa dan chanju senpa senpa chenpo baba 원주 게 세단 덴바 샤레 다데 볼란데 게 제메소 샤리부 리게보 리게보 발라라 샤라게 바르데 쳔바사모 쳔바 쳔바 더바데 시달라 바르자와르자데 봄봉아보데 달라야라 신게 동벌 남바리안다바 제수 타오 Lu Tongpa, Tongpa Ni Su Su, Su Le Tongpa Ni
Ni
Ji,
Shi Ma Yin
Tongpa
Tongpa
Ni
Ni
Le
Le
Jiang
Jiang
Su
Su
Chi
Chi
Ma
Ma
Yi
Yin
Non
Non
De
De
Shin
Shin
Du
Du
Tsorwa
Thorwa
Dang
Dan
Du
Du
Ji
Chi
Dang
Dan
Du
Du
Ji
Chi
Dang
Dan
Nam
Nam
Bar
Bar
She
She
Ba
Ba
Nam
Nam
Tong
Tong Ba Wo
She Ri
Shari
Bu
Bu
De
De
Da
Da
Che Dang Je
Tongpa
Tongpa Ni
Ni
De
De
Si
Se
Ni
Ni
Me
Me
Ba
Ba
Ma
Ma
Je
Ge
Ba
Ba
Ma
Ma
Ga
Ga
Ba
Ba
Te
Te Ma
Ma
Me
Me
Ba
Ba Te
Te
Ma
Ba
Da
Da
Te
Da
Wa Te Wa Me
Gang Wa Me
Me Ba
Ba
Wo
Wo
She Ri
Shari
Bu
Bu
De
De
Da
No
Wa
Me
Na
No
Tongpa
Tongpa
Ni
Ni
La
La
Su
Su
Me
Me
Tsorwa
Thorwa
Me
Me
Du
Du
Shi
Chi Me
Du
Du
Ji
Chi
Me
Me
Nam
Nam
Bar
Bar
She
She
Ba
Ba
Me
Me
Mi
Mi
Me
Me
Na
Na Wa
Wa Me
Me
Na
Na
Me
Me
Che
Che
Me
Me
Lu
Lu
Me
Me Yi
Yi Me
Me
Su
Su
Me
Me
Dra
Ra
Me
Me
Te
Ji Me Ro
Ro
Me
Me
Mi
Re
Re
Ja
Ja
Me
Me
Chu
Jo
Me
Me
Do
Do
Me
Me
Ge
Ge
Ga
Ga
Me
Me
Ba
Ba
Ne
Ne
Yi
Yi
Ge
Ge Ka Me
Yi
Yi Ge
Ge Nam
Nam
Bar
Bar
She
She
Be
Be
Kan
Gang
Je
Ge
Ba
Ba
Do
De
Yang
Yang
Me
Me
Do
Do
Ma Re Ba Me Ma
Ma
Re
Re
Ba
Ba
Se
Se Ba
Ba
Me
Me
Ba Ne
Ga
Ga Re
Shi
Si
Me
Me
Ga
Ga
Shi
Shi
Se
Se
Be
Be Ba Je Yang
Yang
Me
Me Do
Do
De
De
She
She
Su
Do
Du
Du
Nge
Ma
Wa
Do
Dang
Dang
Kun
Kun
Ju
Ju
Wa
Wa
Dang
Dang
Bu
Bu
Ba
Ba
Dang
Dang
Ma
Ma
Me
Me
Yi
Yi
She
Shi
Me
Me
To
Do
Ba
Ba Me
Me Ma
Ma
To
Do
Ba
Ba
Yang
Yang
Me
Me
Do
Do Ja Re Bu De Do
Dawa
Me
na
Do
jan
Sha
ju
Ju
san
San
ba
Ba
na
Na
to
Do
ba
Ba
me
Me
be
Bi
chir
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 ge
Ge
ba
Ba
ru
Da
do
Da
chen
Ja
ma ten jin ne de sen la
Ma
tri
Re
ba
Ba
me
Me
je
Jin
tra
Ra
ba
Ba
me
Me
de
De
chen
Che
je
Je
lo
La
le
Le
shen
Shin
do
Dun
de
Dun
ne
Dun
nyang
Dun
e
Dun
le
Dun
de
Dun
be
Dun
tar chen
Chin
do
Dun
du
Dun
sun
Dun
do
Dun
nam ba
Dun Dun
kan je tam
Dun
je jan shir ge ba ru do chen ba la te ne la na me ba yang ba ba do be jan ju do mo ba ru zo ba sa je so de da shir je ba ru do chen be nga ri ba chen be nga la na me be nga yang ba da nyam be tu me tam je ra du shi war che be nga mi zu be na den ba shi ba cha de shi ra ge ba ru do nga me ba ta ya ta ga de ga de bara sang ga de bu de so shi re bu chan ju sen ba chen bu de da shi ra ge ba ru do chen ba tang mo la ta ba cha wo ne ne chom den de ding e zen de le shin de jong ju sen ba chen bu pa pa chen le se wang ju la de so she cha wa chen ne le so ri ji bu de de shin no de shin de chen ra ju de chen ba shin tu shi ra ge ba ru do chen ba sa mo la che ba pi shin she ba nam ya che su yi rang chon den de ge je ka chen ne che dan de ba sha ri ga de ju sen ba chen bu pa pa chen le se wang ju dang tam je dan den be kor de da dang la dang mi dang pa dang chisara je be je de yi rang de chom den de ge su ba la ngo ba ge tong.
Page 11. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgriha and Vulture Speak, together with a great assembly of monks and Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was totally absorbed in the concentration that examines all phenomena, called profound illumination. And at the same time, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, was engaged in the profound practice of the wisdom Gambhya, analyzing the five aggregates by nature. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra spoke to the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, how should those of good family learn who wish to follow the profound practice of the wisdom Gambhya? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, replied to the Venerable Shariputra, saying, O Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of good family wishes to follow the profound practice of the wisdom Gambhya should look at it like this, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, karmic formations, and consciousness are all empty. Therefore, Shariputra, all phenomena are empty without characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are neither impure nor free from impurity. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no karmic formations, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. There are no spheres of the eyes up to no spheres of the mind. There are none of these all the way up to the sphere of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, nor is there destruction of ignorance. There are none of these all the way up to, there is no old age and death, nor is there destruction of old age and death. Thus there is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. There is no wisdom, no attainment, but no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, all bodhisattvas hold to the wisdom gone beyond, and because there is no pure mind, they have no fear. Passing utterly beyond falsity, they pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas of the three times, by relying on the wisdom gone beyond, fully and clearly awakened to unsurpassed, most perfect and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of wisdom gone beyond, the mantra of great insight, the unequaled and unsurpassed mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as the truth, where there is no exception. The mantra of wisdom gone beyond is proclaimed. Tayanda Gandhi 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 Vara Sangandhi O Shari Randa Sisava Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn the profound wisdom gone beyond. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and praised the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, very good, O son of good family. It is exactly like that. The profound wisdom gone beyond should be practiced exactly as you have said, and then the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, the noble Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world with its gods, men, anti-gods, and spirits, their hearts full of joy, praise the one who is so as to know of discourse on the essence of the wisdom gone beyond.
이게 참말다 드림하면서 스타트고 근데 다 진주 지가 차대 그래서 다음에 진주 그래서 뭐다 참 대버치 비치 이나는 자세 장주 선박 제발 럽실 때마 근데 이게 또 나도 뭔지 장주 선박는지 지들 라바 나신 말한도야 아니 직다 냠랭이 되는 진주 당고 틀어 삼바 공부하시는 라고 이래 손지.
Now you all, it's Thursday, and the lecture on Thursdays is in the way of the Bodhisattva by Shantideva, and among the Dharma, and particularly the Mahayana Dharma. Here are trainings of the conduct of Bodhisattvas, just as Bodhisattvas of the past practiced. In just the very same way will we, training, first listening, then contemplating, and then cultivating.
내가 하나도 다 자세 장주선배 쪄발라다. 뭔게 지다 장주선바 남지 아니 자세 장주선배 쪄발라네. 아니 가르쳐야나 랑기다. 대화 탐지 두바. 네 탐지 세바. 어디나 요레스. 디 펠레체네 랑기장. 마나도 대화 되바레 둥에 메되바레. 인데 대화 두고 요레. 둥에 메되바 인데 둥에 세고 요레. 제가 나중에 되나신 라고 요레스.
Not just as bodhisattvas of the past engaged in their trainings, we too will train with the end in mind of achieving all there is in contentment and well-being and dispelling and alleviating all pain and sorrow. Just as the bodhisattvas of the past have done, we will do just the same. As pain and sorrow is undesirable and contentment is desirable, so we train just as they have.
다 되게 이거 아주 지난다 최 법에 가다 최체 세고디 다 간다를 찌기 최체고로서 찌기 최치기 인신들이 라는 것도 최체하고 무수디 말해 무수디 차요 말했다 이제 좀마다 최체 세고 다 간다를 랑기 대화직 루부고 여바당 동에 민두바 세고 여바 인도 다고 딜을 굉장히 딜을 때는 아니 맞아 최체 세고 같이 우리 알아서
Now, when it is said you must do just this, you must practice just that dharma, I will practice just that dharma. These expressions don't describe our particular tradition, for our tradition takes in mind the need to achieve contentment, to dispel pain and sorrow, and in view of these, the accomplishment of contentment and the dispelling of sorrow, in view of these, urges one to practice dharma.
다디나는 최 티바 침을 최세 세리즈마다 간다를 랑기 대화 침을 주비 대화 탈투바 랑기 대화 신기 두바 탐지 루트야기 대화 등의 두비 인수도 티바 침을 최세 대시들 레벨에서
And when mention is made of the Mahayana Dharma, this means to achieve for oneself the ultimate in contentment, the most significant form of contentment. And it means to realize this both for oneself and for all others. And in this way, this becomes Mahayana Dharma.
이 인디자마 상하서 대화스민 나가지고다 대화스에서 수수 되베디 대화 수수 민두바디 동행세 세상다 되버디 수있는 되버디 가오 대화 징계로 민두바지는 꼭 동해나 or around the city was a tea induced rang deba. But deba the lion, that rang deba tie about it. And we do the land in a Tanga never read this one.
And so what is desirable is satisfaction, what is undesirable is dissatisfaction, and this is true for whoever you are, that what is found desirable when possessed is cause of gratification, and whatever that is undesirable when met with is cause for sorrow. And there are causes for these that are innumerable themselves.
Oh, yes, that's a new symbol, Chabal love you, and it that they are the doing to shake your body, mixage reasons.
It's a particular explanation, the explanation of pain and sorrow and of contentment that has to do with the trainings in the way of the Bodhisattva.
Oh, yeah, that is Juju Kurana, they are the doing motor kind of cheers, 아니 지대행기 대화 지대 대화 진입아 가주 대화 같이 되는 하나도 대배 대화 가주 주어가 있나 양스 대단지 현대 대화를 중화해서 어디서
And in the way of the Bodhisattva, how is it that satisfaction and dissatisfaction are introduced in this way? That the cause for every personal satisfaction experienced is the wish to bring about the well-being of others.
나와요. 이 이들마다 지대나는 것도 믿어봐. 동행 생겨져 왔다. 디 근데 간제 중화해서 원래로 텔레비전마다 지대 동행 진입아. 지대나는 거하고 믿어봐. 동행 간제 주어봐 이나 양스 진입아 대군 대군 랑데 되려 중스 랑수도 되어 되어 텔레 and
again, the introduction is made to satisfaction and dissatisfaction in light of the training of the Bodhisattvas in this way. Where do pains and sorrows come from? All worldly pain and sorrow comes from the desire to meet one's own needs and satisfy oneself.
Oh, yeah, that's 대화 간의 중화래스 지와당 아니 대화의 신 대화 되봐 신 대화 신라 대화 때려 신라 대화 되봐 딜레 아니 대화 간가 연구래 대화 중세 고들의 대화 연구래스 랑 대화 미디어바디 간의 중화래스나 근데 랑 누가 미디어바디 랑 대화 신 대화 열 신기 대화 예어 도와 인자 아니 누가 자산 중화래스 So
then, where does contentment come from? Personal contentment comes from the wish to see other sentient beings contented and in their well-being. All well-being and all personal satisfaction come from this, the desire for others to be well. And all that is undesirable, that is pain and sorrow, while one wishes for personal satisfaction, all that one meets by way of pain and sorrow comes from the disregard for the well-being of others in pursuit of one's own well-being alone.
Oh, yeah, that indeed, and you back is Shen Deva Deba. Then Deva Chungwatan, Ran Deva Deba, Lungan Chungwadi, and Kunda back is not. And Karsesna. 장주 쌤이 냠내 랑 심바 대족이 아니 대당 한달 장주 쌤이 동에 양수 말라니게 쳐버 들었다고 그랬어 장주 쌤 수수랑 장주 쌤이 동에 장주 쌤이 왜 냠내 마진이다 아니 자세 장주 쌤 봐도 그게 장주 쌤이 냠내 제 심바 이익이 쳐버렸다는 시행을 해서 숨어졌습니다.
What support is given for this, that all that is unwanted pain and sorrow that we meet comes from disregard for others and satisfaction coming from regard for others? Where is the support for this? It is said that it will be understood when one observes the difference between the practices of the Bodhisattvas who have begun their practice and are in their training, and those who do not train, the difference between the two will make this apparent to one.
근데 인도다 이제 지났어. 이제 되게 인도다 아주 냠슬랭 좀 망고 여러 냠len 첼 메타보 코메 여러 되네 이제 바게다 라는데 누가 저거 냠len 좀 망고 체 여러 이나네다 가나네다 냠len 체가 초도 주와 냠len 체는 편도 체쇼 여봐 냠len 탈치 뭐 대화 탈치 뭐 룹투야 되 냠len 다 체라 다 장주고 생기 공부래 장주 생기 망고나 시행기 냠len 가르쳐 봐 이나야 아니 다와 친구들이 톡톡 말했어 제가 다 장주 생 공부이나 대화 타다 초 톡톡을 해서 또 탈도 되래서
With this reason as support, then, where there are the many meditations there are, including meditation upon impermanence and awareness of all activities of body and speech, and among all of these meditations, the best, the most beneficial for realizing the ultimate and well-being is meditation upon the awakening mind, Bodhisattva. It realizes the greatest in the way of satisfaction. Without it, that greatest form of satisfaction cannot be realized. That's it, ultimately, Bodhisattva, to realize the greatest form of contentment.
Oh yeah. 당마 별로 최통 못하는 조지 별로 배 아니 가담을 나최 다르바로 가담을 최 다르바로 가담을 최 다르도 많은 가담을 최가 조지 로마 조디 저 돈데 말아 제가 인디서 맞다 또 그나도 아니 바게 쇼데도 아니 조지 쇼사가 하간데로 아니 미주가 거라지 이 쳐봐 그 차세 마무치기 열어와 아니 제대로 니마직 매직 안도 거라도요 아니 거라도 되도 아니 가르쳐 봐서는 콜라 야와 좀더 버제 저 좀더 버제도 조지기다 기도 도디마 저 좀더 버제 버는 저 좀더 버제도 좀 아니 저 좀더 버 콜라지 저 가르쳐 아저는 거라 쳐봐다 시우 야보라 공부를 거라 잡아도 손은 첨부를 야보라 이내 저랑 취지 제바이나 내가 야기로 왔어 거라 잡아도 야보래데 이내 저랑 취지 제바이나 아니 내가 가지 야가 요구로 왔어 갑자기 나를 예측송을
The Dharmas spread to Tibet, spreading with Atisha. When it is said then, the Kadamba Dharma had spread to Tibet. It had spread through Atisha, Lord Atisha, whose principal student among many students was Drompa. And there was a temple there where Atisha resided, and students would circumambulate the temple, offering homage and prostrations. And one day, there was a person there circumambulating the temple, and they met with Drompa along the way. And Drompa was this principal disciple of Atisha. Wasn't he Drompa, principal disciple of Atisha? And a circumambulator met this Drompa there, and Drompa advised him, well, it is excellent and very meritorious that you circumambulate as you do. Yet, nevertheless, wouldn't it be even better if you were to practice dharma?
Boy, 지금 저 정도 몰랍지 제가 인도 담아나 가르치는 미디 담아나 가르치는 야, 다 꼬치가 들리다 취시라 차게 있어 말아 들리다 이거 지금 취되는 로 베젤로 아니 베젤 그 관도에 체 들리시는 야가 인사를 했으면 그 셈마디 텐진 그 공부가 수루지를 치 올라가는 소리잖아 그 베젤로 전 손으로 아니 두 관도에 체들이 이 안ጆ고는 저 정도 뭐 패 이런 보통 보데 그 취로데 치라야或者 가오중 이내 그런 취로바들 취지랑 지는 가기를 해서 양권에 계속 송을 해서
Then this person thought, well, then it must be that there's something more than circumambulation. Perhaps it is dharma to read Mahayana scripture, read them and recite them. So this circumambulator removed themselves to a corner there in the temple and read the scriptures of the Mahayana Dharma and read these and recited these, and then again was come upon by Dromtomba, and Dromtomba observed again. Well, isn't it great to see you read and recite Mahayana scriptures? But wouldn't it be better yet if you were to practice Dharma?
보이스 그래서 미디 가르치는 차세는 양 취하고 차미고 앞에절로는 취하고 차거든 나 가르치고 나서다 다 검자고 있어요 검자는 아닌데 오늘 취하기 있어요 애삼 아고 나가 나로야 치는 그 검자들 미좀 저 검자네 배절로야 가서 보라 봐샤 미도 검이 잡지 되듯이 아니 저dom도 야 취대 가르치기 나 검자가 있어 알 검자야 보라 이내 저런 취지 저거를 취지는 가그리 검자발로 취지는 가그리 했으니 연구원에 손을 했습니다.
And this person then reflected, well, perhaps there's something more that is dharma apart from reading scriptures. Well, then it might well be meditation itself. That likely is dharma itself. Then this person went into the temple, put aside the scriptures they were reading, closed their eyes, and meditated there. And Dromtomba came upon them and said, whoa, what are you doing now? Here you are meditating, yet again, wouldn't it be better yet if you practice Dharma now?
이치도 말이야 그 미디다 직전에 너무 배절로를 취하고 재미도 쓰고 아니 거라도네 취지는 검견을 곧 가르치고 있나 선부랑 답시 많이 아니 삼땅된 그 남자 여dom도 뭐라는 땅아 취어 가르치고 그랬어 야 저거 당시 취어 가르치고 그랬어 저거 땅 아니 저거 땅도 네 내는데라 네 여dom도 뭐래 조 계란서 조스가 진짜 계란 나오라 계란 셀려 땅 살인이 송래서 어디 세상 거 따르쳐 가르치고 그래서 매일은 셀려 땅 스틸레인 자리에서 있어.
So here the person is reflecting all over again. Here prostrations aren't dharma. Circumambulation is apparently not dharma. Reading Mahayana scriptures is apparently not dharma. And now I'm left with nothing to identify as dharma. Where does that leave me? They were pondering. What is left for me to do? They were pondering. And again, Dromtomba came upon them. And this time the person asked Dromtomba, what am I to do? And Dromtomba replied, you. This life, you must dispense with it. This life, you must dispense with it. 2 times and a 3rd time. And this was Dromtomba's reply.
Oh, yes, that cellular dance, and that countries was sometimes landing. And that Suzu Yaman and Jana countries are best. Negative of Toyota, yes, was. Also, that cellular dance, that cellular dance, that Carrillo time.
Sigi can right?
Oh, I think daughter of Martha,
This life, dispense with it as a reply. What sort of reply is this? And how are we to apply such an answer to a practice? Now, this is my question, not as Dromtomba. My question as Kishikonjo to you. So when asked, when urged, dispense with your life, how do you interpret that?
却맞아요 시적으로 내가 좀 종라차로 와서 거지.
If we immediately associate dispensing with one's life with one's death, then that's only to take quite a loss, isn't it? Then in ordinary society, yet nevertheless in ordinary society, when we think of sacrificing our life, this amounts to us, to our death. Yet if we were to think like that, to dispense with one's life is to die, then that is to die without yet having practiced the Dharma, which would have been quite a loss.
예. 그래서 그때 선마다는 아니다 셀러다야 가리어래. 스타 저리로 가리려다고 해서 다 셀러다 가서는 세대를 신자체로 이 마치스. 어디 거기서
Now, not thinking in this way, yet dispensing with one's life, how would one dispense with one's life? It would be to resist the seduction of this life.
딱 아주 세대를 신자 간듯이 그랬어. 맞아. 수수수 저 땅이나 수수 미지나 수수 세대를 반드시 신자체로 신자체를 딱 아주 배전하고 장가게도 지된 취계스. 지된 취계디 아니 아주 세대를 마땅 지된 취계디 제바이나 세대를 마땅 지된 취계디 마제바이나 세대를 땅와서 뒤뒤시 계그래서
Then what is the seductive attachment to this life? How does it arise? It arises through the 8 worldly dharmas. So long as one is absorbed in 8 worldly dharmas, one has yet to dispense with this life. When one does no longer absorb themselves with 8 worldly considerations, then they have dispensed with this life.
예, 딱 말하면서 이마치마다 그속에 최 지기도 미도에 간데 삼로 땅이베 간데 새 수비베 행에 최체도 미도 수수 간데 딱이 매스나 딱 지된 최제도 마제베 내가 가르쳐도나야 최제발 지된 최제 디당 삼로 땅은 최 가르쳐도나 이 지된 제발 최제가 말해서 때 상상 제에서
When we speak of dharma and adharma, how would we consider dharma versus adharma, non-dharma? How would we measure dharma versus adharma, non-dharma? How would we consider it and how would we view it? So long as activities are intermixed with 8 worldly dharmas, then they aren't yet dharma. When, however, one has parted from their fixation upon 8 worldly dharmas, then their activities become dharma, and there's the line that makes the difference.
예, 세상 일이 다 당아서 수수수고 최제도 미도 티로 전에 상상 제보고 유나 아직된 최제 제도나 지대 제버려. 아직된 최제다 맞아봐서는 아니 지금 밀라 차세 줘봐그 밀라 지바당 랑게 랍제 밀라 팬도 가르치셔야나 네 상황 최제버려. 어떤 상태에서 최제보다 맞으면 참되래서
Then between dharma and adharma, when a line is drawn and there's a clear border, the line is drawn and the border becomes whether or not 8 worldly dharmas and their fixation is involved in the activity or is not. So long as the 8 worldly dharmas preoccupy one's activities are mundane. But when the practice of charitable giving, advising others, paying homage and making prostrations and the rest are divorced from 8 worldly considerations, they are dharma. Here, the line drawn between dharma and adharma.
예, 다 대인들 최제디 아뭐 마송나 이제 주제 거라는 뭐시면은 아니 그 지된 주제 제도 재미도 뭐시 말로 와서
Now, if one doesn't know what these 8 worldly considerations are, then unfamiliar with them, one won't be able to identify dharma from adharma.
그나마 미지 뭐신 거고요나 미디 야가래 누가래 따라라 당고 미디 뭐 쳐로 미디 뭐 신선 아니 신의 거다 야고래 두자랬어 신의 뜻이 개두고 와 어디 나지 지대 주제 거나 당고 뭐 마시나 아니 그 지대 주제 제 맞이 상대하고 말아와서
No differently from when evaluating a person, a better sort of person or a worse sort of person, it can't be done if the person is unknown, and is only possible once the person is known and identifiable. So too, one cannot identify dharma from adharma until one is familiar with eight worldly considerations. So it should be eight worldly considerations appear clearly to one and are known clearly and vividly. The first two are to be delighted with gain, to become distraught when facing a loss. The second pair, to delight in fame and to become distraught with ill fame. The third pair, to delight in praise, to become distraught when criticized. And the final pair, to delight in satisfactions and to become distraught facing dissatisfaction. So that would be the list of eight worldly considerations. Considering each of the eight worldly dharmas, one finds that within each there's a great deal to reflect upon. The idea of when meeting with some profit, something, some wealth, when one comes by these things or wealth, when one is delighted by that, and when one is distraught when those sorts of things are lost, that's the first pair. And similarly, when one is praised, or when one meets with others who flatter them, and when the flattery and the praise delights them, or when one meets with some criticism, or hears something unpleasant said about them, and when this causes one to become distraught, these are mundane responses, and these are mundane dharmas as they become cause for pain and sorrow. When others say of you, oh, you're an excellent sort of person, you're a very talented person. Expressions like this, versions of praise that we meet, when these gratify us, here is a mundane response. And when another says of us, oh, you're incapable of this, you are pathetic and unable to do this, you are bad, then when we become distraught, as these responses become cause for our own pain and sorrow, these are mundane responses, mundane considerations.
뭐야, 잘못도 지대나 되나가 누구는 내가 생각 나랑 거기 지금을 옮겨서 봐야 뭐 톱수는 아주 배요. 아마 그 쉬고 톱 중선에 가고 공부를 나랑 지금 내 나자도 매봐. 아니 수수수 못이 대단도 정말 나랑 쉬고 배 대화 톱이 가고 싶으로 앞에 대우이 앞에 강에 매스 마대우이 기부이 나기로 뭐야. 세상에 나라도 없다 지금 게 나라다 나라도 없지 수수그 되바 여버도 별라는 수수배다 기버 대화 이버 소화지로 와 아주 그 소화 대화 간리지 어디게 강가로다 아주 대화 징기로 와 대화 징야겠다 소화 대화세로 어디 탐지랑 아주 있다 정말 가봐세 나라는 소화 동행에서나 류를 많이 봤어 류를 나서 쌤을 많이 봐 아니 랑이 규노롱 저로서 쇼로 하나 땀이 뭐 중앙에 되나 아주 막아지고 와 어때 이 당말로 세대기 신자로 용기열에 이 중앙에는 세대의 신기열에 제 가르쳐 있는 동행 길을 두고 열에서 거의 길을 두고 열에 동행 길을 두고 열에서
To delight in satisfaction, to be distraught with dissatisfaction. For instance, coming by great wealth, and coming by great wealth, feeling great gratification, oh, look at what I've inherited, or feeling well, physically well, not being ill, and feeling of oneself, oh, I'm happy because I'm so well, I'm so healthy. Or whatever one wishes for, when they get that, as they have identified that thing as cause for satisfaction. This whole host of mundane responses are mundane insofar as they will result in pain. And then when physical pain and mental hardship, criticism from others, and the rest cause in us our becoming distraught, these are the mundane considerations, mundane because they are cause for samsara, and they are cause for pain and sorrow.
뭐야 근데 땅 알아서 지속 나라도 소화 대화 먼저 일단 돼야 소화 대화도 강가로 대화도 먼저 대화를 먼저 지기로 왔어 이나야 이 대화 뭐네 말해 코 동의 대화 짐벌 꼭 남지 마도 동의기 불러 동의기 불러봐 우리야 이도 콜 동의스가 소화 동의스가 그래 나랑도 소화 대화 짐벌 이나야 코 대화문에 말해 그래서 그 대화문에 이나 그 유래매 봐 동의를 봐 유르못 못고 우리의 매번 보고로 어디 말해 먼저 소화 대화 내가 지기 대화를 엔치를 동의를 교조인이 콜 소화 대화 쓰는 그래서
And in ordinary life, the feeling of satisfaction, that feeling of satisfaction which we desire, we identify as satisfaction, yet we are misconstruing what is painful as satisfactory. It is actually a painful feeling that we construe as a pleasant feeling, for it is painful insofar as it will change into a painful feeling. For something to be satisfaction and contentment, it must be unchanging, it must be constant.
뭐야 티나시다 말아도 지도 난 하나 미스나 아니 랑라다 셈라 강에 율은 나자 어디서 주마 건강 저도 소화 능해지기 소화 능해를 되고 소화 능해 다 이내야 능해를 다 내가 능해를 이내야 다 랑이 셈 마지고 여기 나자 되게 좋은 차도 랑이 능해 되게 봐 쌍마 다르고 다는 그 능해디 봤세 다는 꼭 대화를 기억해 줄래 누구요 세상 안 하고도 대화도 능해세다 하다가 좀 어디 최고 규제디 가르스나 대화도 능해생이야 뭐 정말 맞잖아 아니 능해를 대화지 대화를 통해지 아니 아주 그 추도 그거 같다. 네 맞추야 된다. 대화도 통해지 맞추기 어려서.
And in a lived life, in our ordinary lived lives, what we experience as mental hardship and physical pain, insofar as they are feelings and sensations, they are painful feelings and sensations. And so temporarily they are painful feelings. But once they arise, then they pass, and with their passing is eliminated that very pain and suffering. And insofar as the pain and suffering is eliminated, then it becomes satisfaction and pleasure. And so why is it that we provide an introduction to pain and sorrow and satisfaction and contentment that we do here? We do for the reason that if that identification of what is pain and sorrow and contentment and satisfaction isn't made, then we will continue to misconstrue the painful feeling for the pleasurable feeling and the pleasurable feeling for the painful feeling. So we make this introduction. Then if one were to practice, then they would do so by applying Dromtonpa's response. This life, dispense with it. This life, dispense with it. 2 times repeated. This would be integrated to one's practice.
내가 제윤에다 마지고네 마주 제윤에다 이지고네 그랬으면은 남산 오 다리 지된 취지에다 저와 총고 야고를 마서 오 다리 야고를 지된 취지에다 제 마서 야고를 해서 스스로 셈나는 아 장세치야 양면치야 강가 되는 참교로서 상하지도 지된 취지에다 방고 장가도 약고서 야고를 해서
the 8 worldly considerations would be remembered, recalled again and again, so that whatever one does, whether their physical action or their speech, whatever their action, one could recognize, oh, here is a mundane consideration. Oh dear, here is a mundane consideration. And in this way, clear up the mundanity and improve the consideration as one goes.
Now this
is just an introduction to the topic today, how one would best consider these.
남샤 시베 가도들 사람 될래요. 이내 딱 맞아 니모 되게 랑기 줄라 파지 니모도 주고 뭐시에 다달 셈 차라 남시에 뭐 마시나 니모도 저 시제 가고 이거이지 니모도 이게 뭐시에 니모도다 니미 시야다 니모도다 뭐 쳐야 된다. 아무 셈 나도 수수 셈 니모 셈 가르지어래. 계획 셈 가르지어래. 오, 되게 영향 뭐시야 또 셈 차라게 깨지 시야 방래 되어 돼서
Now for our topic, what is our subject? We are presently reading the 4th chapter on conscientiousness, 4th chapter of the way of the Bodhisattva. This is part of a presentation of afflicted minds, mental afflictions. So the context is the presentation of mental afflictions. But in order to identify mental afflictions, we are considering the range and states of conscious awareness from coarse to subtle. For without such familiarization with the range of conscious awareness from coarse to subtle, it isn't easy to identify the perils of mental afflictions. and it isn't easy to familiarize ourselves with mental afflictions. Therefore, what is a virtuous state of mind and what is not, this depends upon some familiarity with conscious awareness, ranging from coarse to subtle. Now, the minds involved, such as self-identification in the notion of I, myself, and then the notion of my mind and my body. This is how we express these things, don't we? We have something like an executor in the notion of I, myself, and belonging of my body and my mind to that executor.
Oh, yeah, that's he knew some mass is to a that's just mingri or mingri than mingri to my mess again, say, that's a get tashi, sings to oh, the tag nothing in the Manzuki Nadi, that Thomas Moma, God, your woman at Tijavina, Thomas never the ma to the young day. Tanda, lose it long, Tanda Yuba. Jema Ludipa, never China, and you got about Rodini. Oh, nothing is your response.
Then I, myself, each I, themselves, with their respective name, each of us with our own name, such that we refer to ourselves and say that I am not here or I am here. And there is some basis, some support where the notion of the self is planted. And then that is the self that is referred to as we, if we do, count the many previous embodiments, innumerable embodiments up until the present. These are that self, and then the present embodiment, and then the imminently departing embodiment. These are meant in this self.
Oh, yeah, that said, dig it, and then around the land, my near to my kin. And again, it and about the net, the net demand, but that chidu, much you forget. Usual, you didn't, Yamdula. Jung the same job. The Lubu same cigarette, Rakwe same cigarette.
Therefore, in the present life, from the moment one is born from the womb of their mother, and so long as they are abiding here in the present existence, all the way up until their death, in this period, the notion of my mind is of a mind that is supervenient, it is adventitious, and it is a coarse state of conscious awareness.
Oh, yeah, that's my near Chabane, Jima Mash, Joe Sawa Maling Park. A sheet, Chua Ligro, Chua Maling Pardilla, Tamazu Kalere, Missy near Missy Chicks, Yeg Sechik, Yeg Missy Chick. Oh, the Missy Chick, Titan, Jawa Yogi, Sem Dilata Lubua, Rapas, or the resonance.
Therefore, from the moment of conception in the womb of one's mother until the re-embodiment following one's death, between these two moments, that duration is the life, the lifespan, my life, my lifespan, and connected states of conscious awareness connected to this embodiment in this lifespan are states of conscious awareness that are supervenient, adventitious.
Oh, yeah, that is Rabba, send the Rabba. This send the Rabba, that's I mean, my near Chatu, I didn't lose almost same Rabba, go to us. I didn't same Rabba, Tama she do, and some Rabba Pagani, and Tamal Pagu. Or Chamone, Rabba, Suke, Kene, and yeah, Jama Shidu, 참으로 파팅 다 되게 좀 봐주는 아주 메시지 두고 열었습니다.
And so, of course, states of conscious awareness have begun with the first moment of conception, growing more coarse following the first moment of conception, growing from subtle minds into coarser minds, all the way until the moment of death, when, at the moment of death again, coarse states of conscious awareness give rise or are reduced to subtler states of conscious awareness. And therefore, the span of a lifetime involves the development of coarser states of conscious awareness from subtler states and the reduction of those coarser states into their subtler states.
맞습니다. 어디 주주 거였으나 대열 가두 차버서 내셔 가두 매버 차버 그래서 아주 미지직들이 샘이 참원에 라벌을 주 라벌에 참원을 같이 줄디 그 미지직 저버려서.
And when we speak of when does it begin and when does it end? When do the coarse states of mind first arise and when do they cease? Their arising and then their ceasing takes place across the span of the human life.
다 샘제 컨디션이다. 수수 산제 차와당 장주의 샘 토블레잖아. 다 권리 주대스 요친 살와. 되면은 다 도단 피가랑 그런 로고를 했습니다.
This is the case for any sentient being. A different matter for Buddha, for the highly adept, where there's some change in these states, but for all otherwise, this is the state of conscious awareness.
딱 한달 산제단 상주 셈버 토고 되조기 아니 딱고 이 다들 버티나 도고고요 말아. 또 뭐고에 가르스나 코샘 참고 대가나 돌아 꼬라게 두고요. 뭐 참원에 라바네 참고 자들이 더 뭐고 쇠살와 이 메디 좀 않고 샘 때문에 차사를
For the Buddha, for the Bodhisattvas, those with their elevated aptitudes, their development no longer resembles the way in which we cycle through increasingly coarse and then ever subtler states of mind again and again. They have removed these coarse states of mind and are stable in subtle states.
나는 이게 명당이나 아무 계시 있어요. 시바시 계시 아무도 장가자다 버린 술 빼지나 저기 문제입니다. 열다 단단한 거 가르쳐서 한번 미지기 한번 계시 계시바 얘네 모두지 시바 얘네 치시 얘네 발시 시바시 어디 건들라 도사기 랑가 시바시라고 해서
There are four states of existence, a count by which any individual goes through four states of existences. The first state, the birth state or birth existence. The first state, birth state. The second, the living state. The third, the death state. And the fourth, the intermediate state or existence.
자기 꼬라잡이 물어봐. 야, 이 발시는 계시네 원두스가 어디 꼬라잡는데 꼬라잡이도나 다 코알 꼬라잡이 민도나 다 코알 타 어떻게 되실래요? 그래서
And one perpetually cycles from the intermediate state to the birth state, to the living state, to the death state, to the intermediate state, and so on. And it is known as a cycle of samsara. Or else one has become liberated from samsara.
예, 딱 셈라 화스리자면 항상 루북이 셈라 화스리 딱 먼저 셈라를 항상 수수셈라 못 쳐봐. 아주 중요한 셈 되기도 소스.
So then the core states of conscious awareness which are supervenient states, I think that each of you, reviewing your own states of mind, has an idea of what these entail.
That's ne sheba chamu nyuksim sigre nyuksim sheba chamu and sheba mingshamba wese chiwa wese or semi ming de yoresums chamu.
As for the subtle mind, subtle states of conscious awareness, these are innate states. They are subtle states. They are the clear light. They are death's clear light.
Oh, yeah, that is same chamu said. That same chamu sigre manzu jawa ngomani de yon de tanda dini de bachiman do tanda de chiak pe yun tu ni lu tande lu de la teba meba lu de mena yang do tu yi de tu yi yong tu yi o de de semi do de la ta sheba chamu sa bre yeso lu de yue de mena chebar meba lu de mena yang ko do tu ne to nga chi tu yi o de de chi sem ji de la ta yung sem sigre ani sheba chamu sigre o de ta dis sheba chamu mo do shi dan de reso.
That consciousness mind, which is a continuity and continuum since a beginningless beginning of samsara through the present, and is involved in the imminent departure to subsequent existences, such a continuum which is independent of any particular embodiment, which does not depend upon its physical instantiation, no difference whether there is physical support or not. Such a mind is a subtle mind. It is the innate mind, primordial mind.
Oh, yeah, that music, same ni do chamu da la wa ni yo was. That's a ni and kuni that chele da ani ka du tu chawa nyam do chigre chigmare kuni ka de chigre sta chuwa de wa chedan ta ti indu sem chamu de la ga le du sem ra ba de ka do sem ra ba de le so na tu jor la ga chi ko chu du na sem chamu de wa balan ye ji la ga chi ma tu de gre ka do ma ine ku la ga chi ma o de le so.
When subtle minds, different from fourth states of conscious awareness, are described and characterize any given person, then naturally one might wonder, then how do two kinds of minds in any given individual function simultaneously? It's a natural question. When subtle minds, subtle states of conscious awareness are active, then fourth states of conscious awareness are inactive. When gross states of conscious awareness are active, the subtle underlying states of conscious awareness are dormant and inactive, though not absent.
That is it. That's same ragba de to get on the connect or as with some trauma to get. That's any good lagache chawache. Yan tama copa guard some trauma de la patim dog, trauma de la padudu. Oh, the dish your reasons.
Where do the four states of conscious awareness emerge from? They emerge from subtle states of conscious awareness present at birth. They emerge, develop, and become operative until they gradually become inactive in the end of the life.
Oh, yeah. 다만 저기 냠내나 계속 시험도 좀 받다 단다 좀 시험도 냠내나 좀 시험도 다 당분간 저기 단단한 저기 셈 참모도 모두 유투해야지 뉴버디 단단한 저기 요 말에 단단한 저기 셈 라빡 내가 치고 요래서
How is a series in practice? How is this sequence actualized in practice. The subtle mind itself and a transformation into subtle states of conscious awareness isn't available to us. We must work first with coarse states of conscious awareness.
단단 만족 가르장 두고서 딱 만족이 쌤 참고 될라야 내가 제토야기 차지 용야라 아니 쌤 라고들 정들 체니 쌤 라고디 파까 가기 쌤 참고 될라 바로 가지고 도투두지 냠 어디 지어야 돼 아니 딱 냠내디 제시적이 어려서
What are we able to train? We are able to begin to exercise subtle states of conscious awareness. We are able to gradually develop a potential to exercise subtle states of conscious awareness by gradually, repeatedly deactivating coarse states of conscious awareness. This is our present context for this ongoing explanation.
뭐이다 만들 전달 도로 탈투는 쌤 참고되기 내가 지고 열 이내 단단 남주 쌤 참고되기 내가 제투야라 먼저 그 정도를 망고 맞잖아 쌤 참고되기 내가 제투고 열 말에 어디서
Where we stand then is in our awareness that subtle states of conscious awareness themselves must be exercised. However, we aren't yet able to exercise them. In order to develop the capacity to exercise subtle states of conscious awareness, we must get engaged in certain training.
뭐야 대장야 전달 쌤 참고라 내가 제투야 전달라 장사디 더 장은 류리 장은 류들라 쌤 차라 요반하지 류들라 차라 냥 제시자고 해서
In order to engage in these trainings, the very trainings which gradually allow us to exercise subtle states of conscious awareness, we begin by training the physical body. For just as there are coarse states of conscious awareness and subtle states of conscious awareness, there are coarse physical states and subtle physical states.
뭐야 류들라야 류라고 류 참고다 이 쌤을 자원하지 류라야 대자고 해서
Corresponding to coarse states of conscious awareness and subtle states of conscious awareness, there are coarse physical states and subtle physical states.
뭐야 개진어서 그래서 지금 한번 류라고 될라 때는 아니 때문에 쌤들라 쌤라고 슬라이바 제단다 쌤라고 디페제 다니게 류들라 류라고 하자 이 수저나지 파자 쌤 참고 나 때니 아니 그게 내가 지고 얘기 류들라 류 참고 들 룽스 룽 참고라 그래 육룽라 그 명들 육룽 이 육셈 사이바 따라다 육룽 육멜룽 아니 류 자원하지 류라고 이완하지 쌤라고 이완하지 류라고 하지 쌤라고 배주 다니게 류들 류라고 하지 쌤 참모님도 내가 지니게 류들 류 참모 육룽 어디에서
Coarse physical states that are the basis for coarse states of conscious awareness have their counterpart in subtle physical states that are the support and basis for subtle states of conscious awareness. Therefore, where the subtle states of conscious awareness would be exercised, they are exercised through the basis and support of the underlying subtle physical state. That underlying subtle physical state is described as primordial wind, primordial moving wind, just as there is innate mind, there is innate moving wind or primordial moving wind. Therefore, where the subtle mind would be exercised, it is exercised through the primordial moving wind.
뭐야 근데 인도 다 류라고 쌤라고 류 참모 샘 참모 다 간다 샘의 류니 부디기 샘기 차와 가르치기 유면 다 간다 류를 때니 치고요 류다 류라 벌레들이 데스 샘의 류니 부디 파주 저와 서로의 가고요 데스 가고요 이나양 샘 참모가는 류디 다 류를 맞대마 샘이 차와 치고요 말 샘의 류니 부디 참모니 부디 간다 본인 찍을 찍대는 거 저와 지마도 본인 오이메 간다 예치마도 간다 추니 제바이나 아니 디추디리 상도 예치도 말아 되나시 샘 참고를 롱다 샘 니보데 제니 뭐 찍고 요레스 바라고 저도 뭐 다들 통되고 어디를 줘레스
So, coarse physical states with corresponding coarse states of conscious awareness. We have here coarse physical states, coarse states of conscious awareness, subtle physical states, and subtle states of conscious awareness. There they are then, mind and body, that states of conscious awareness depend upon underlying physical states, that there is such a relationship is difficult to clearly comprehend through coarse states of conscious awareness themselves. It is difficult to sense the way in which subtle states of conscious awareness are indivisible and dissoluble from underlying subtle physical states. But at the subtlest level, subtle states of conscious awareness and underlying subtle moving winds are indivisible and indissoluble as water into water are indivisible. But at coarser level, it is more often the case that the mind and the body are seen as separate and discrete.
뒤에서 뭐 가르쳐서 쌤이 저와 지도 쌤 그랑 내가 쪽으로 와서 쌤이 내가 지도 저와 지도 쌤 율 쌤들이 가르쳤다 다 율다 봐 유통하다 율을 봐 주바디 쌤이 저와 레데 이는 쌤 율을 주바디 율을 맞대 쌤 율을 주투야 요말 율을 쌤 요저 쌤도 디네 파도 판에 야도 이도 파도 수 용체가 걸로 룽부터 붙여 룽 파도 쌤 파도 룽수 용도 쌤수 용 이 거두이는 종 냠도 룽도는 쌤도 룽대는 쌤대 뭐 어디를 지구고요 그래서 디인도 아니 쌤 율을 자와체바도 율을 주바디 룽부터 붙여고요 그래서 세상 룽다 쌤니버디 거두이는 뭐 예매지 Now, during
a cognitive process, during a mental event, a mental action, such as perception of an object, the processing of an object requires an object for there to be vision, something seen, something processed. And it's a mental activity. But without the underlying moving wind energies, there's no directing conscious awareness this way or that way or any way whatsoever. In order to process or to perceive an object, the mind itself depends upon the underlying subtle moving wind, and therefore, ultimately, the mind and the body are indivisibly one.
lungu toji yulu ka sem yulu juba gore. 아니 sem yulu iwa chigono pazu yowa chigogo yinaya, lung yosuna sem yogore, lung nesona sem negire esonas.
Therefore, the state of awareness and the underlying moving wind are indivisible for there to be conscious processing of an object. There must be the underlying moving wind, which directs conscious awareness. Therefore, where the underlying moving winds are in motion, the mind is in motion. Where the underlying moving winds are still, the mind is still.
단단하죠. 띵이지 있어가 띵이지 셔럽스. 동반이 또베 셔럽. 동이 무슨도 또베 셔럽. 동이 또베 띵이지. 어떤 아주 대시 자야지. 쌤 참은 되기 쌤이 내로 그런 무슨도 통서나 아니 동이 무슨도 통하면서 내가 냠샤 이시 시그레 아니 거기 동이 또베 셔럽 시그레 동이 또베 띵이지 시그레 저는 코 쌤도 농도 마요와 내 동반이기 되나 그 무슨도 쌤그라 내 무슨도 탈도와 통화이자 그 동반이기 되나 통화스 그걸 더 너무 자주고 쌤 새로 어떤 데에 예수스
Samadhi, mental stabilization, wisdom, the wisdom realizing emptiness, the wisdom realizing emptiness directly, the samadhi of direct realization of emptiness. These put variously in these ways, are subtle wind perceiving emptiness, such that we call this an equipoise state of stillness of the mind, of wisdom realizing emptiness, samadhi realizing emptiness, an unmoving state in which the ultimate nature of phenomena are perceived. Thus, emptiness is seen, and this is ultimate bodhisattva.
인도 쌤 참은 되기 쌤이 되게 동반이기 또 용도 아니 그 가르쳐 말해서나
sim samadhi, samadhi,
룸정마다 쌤 코랑이 되게 동이 또 올라 룸 많이 왔지 룸도 쌤으로 와싱해로 와 쌤 참은데 룸 네버 이자 쌤이 네버 와 쌤 내도 좀 가르내고 가을 네버 쌤 코랑이 되게 동반이기 되게 네버 하고 쌤 코랑이 시 쌤 춘이 되게 춘이 무슨도 또 봐라 다리 또 용도 잡아 쌤 참은 되게 돈이 또 봐라 쌤 참은 되게 돈이 또 봐 이들 하고 가르쳐 버려서 싸한 거 더 봐. 싸한 거 더 봐. 싸한 거 더 봐래. 아니 네가 놓고 돈이 무슨도 또 봐래. 번냠샤 이시래. 거기 받아고 돈 쳐주고 쌤 공화 줄에 깨봐. 어디서 자기가 그래서
It is the mind that realizes emptiness. It realizes emptiness when the underlying winds are still, and the mind itself abides in the realization of emptiness. It is the mind that realizes emptiness, the basis of the realization, the nature of phenomena as they are. Nature as it is seen, it is the subtle mind that perceives the nature of reality on the basis of the unmoving, still wind. And with that, then the first bhumi is realized. It is realized through the direct realization of emptiness, a state of meditative equipoise in wisdom, and it is ultimate bodhisattva, the realization of the first bhumi.
뭐야, 짧게 냠내기 제국의 요가 인도 냠내기 제약을 된다라 먼저 그선 팀을 시에 직세 아니 나라야 무슨 말인지 시에다 어디서 간가로 딱 간다 리버디 샘 참고 동번이 도야게 아 답은 아니 답이 시에 된다 아니 냠네디 되게 리버디 시기 열에서
When a exercise is required for this realization, and one must train in those exercises, we then present the dissolution states and the taking of the three Buddha bodies onto the path as trainings for these realizations in order for subtle mind to realize emptiness. Methods for the development of the ability to make the realization through such practices are presented.
롱장은 셈 네버지 셈 네버는 셈 어떻게 네버를 때는 셈 동반이 무슨 도구를 떠볼 때는 아니 냠는 체가 되면 되게 용리를 어디에서 아니 그림 좀 주도 되는 대신 저거 있는 순간은
So that subtle state of conscious awareness will abide in stillness upon the still moving winds. We exercise the moving wind energies, so that in stillness, the subtle mind may realize emptiness and thereby realize the complete fullness of the practice. And now, if there are any questions, we open for Q&A.
뭐 그림이 다시 제일 시기스들 가지고 원인은 시차로 왔다 팀을 시에 되지 들렸지만 시기에서
Next week, we will review the stages of dissolution. Last week, we presented the 25 gross objects. Next week, the stages in dissolution.
that's what I'm 아니 마세요 더워지나 this la becheso
Now, if there's something that isn't quite clear, then through conversation, maybe clarified.
Yeah. Yes,
I would love some clarification on the relationship between the gross breath and the subtle wind. And in particular, my assumption is that the capacity to still the subtle wind is there for lengthy periods of time, despite the coming and going of the regular breath. Else, one would have to hold one's breath for 4 hours, which seems like an impossibility in the human body. So, yeah, some clarification on that point would be really.
Oh yeah, the negisi negative la says nangna says nangoya karayo lana the rapa yorwa rapa dan ani lung tramo ki kebar bena ta sosogi ani lung tramo de ani mi yor netobna dene sim tramo de ani ngoy nedan de ngoy neluk de top toba top tobe chagende 아니 롱 트라우마디 존다르체야 되래. 다 되네요. 데 롱트라우마다 꼭 라파 되니기 바로라 케바치 요래. 가인스는 꼭 라파디 꼭 중업 들어와. 꼭 중업 데 말이다. 뭐이 내단 또야라. 추서 시기랭라. 꼭 중업 체네. 꼭 파르탄 술 무비야 매바 된데 고기 요나 디 스티기 말해 내는 잡어 기지 하고 봐
no 다들 시장 비례 다디 나 몰롱을 장과 치고 장과 맞이나 이거 말아 장난 요거를 해서
다 가르사 종업대 추도 시기랭라 아니 옥체네 대통과
장과 장과 나가 뒤고 와다 弄了让王过的话，弄了让王头那你弄嘎头的，弄当头的，弄了两个芒果有的东西。
First one must exercise their moving winds in order to control the moving winds. When full control, maybe when full control is realized in one, all of the activities of the moving winds, such as exhalation and inhalation, are also controlled.
定义自己就休息不赢了，这个弄了全部休息了，休息不的东西。定义自己，让个定义自己，卡住这个在全部原来样，这个是在起了，但那你这就休息不了，在全部所吐不的东西。
In degrees of control and aptitude in samadhi, one gains further degrees of control over their respiration. We presently haven't exercised or trained at all. Therefore, it isn't easy for us now. We have to, through exercise, gain control over the moving winds. And we begin to gain the control over the moving winds through exercises of the coarse breathing. Exercises in coarse breathing and greater control allows for increased control over the subtle moving winds, and the coarse respiration is reduced.
Oh, yeah, I'm not so tender. Now, she need to be shamed. She need to do with say, Shandu, Lungi Jua. Choosing you might use substitute. Shouldn't you substitute? And shouldn't you substitute? Full of how going. And she just in full of going, Chachik, Lung Jomulas. I wanted to go to na, and I'm going to she need Tobas. Said the Shire Rasmus.
Within the secret mantrayana, within the mantrayana, the measure of mental concentration is made by dividing the 24 hours into 4 6-hour periods. And when for one of those 4-hour periods, control over respiration has been achieved, and the subtle wind remains unmoving, this then is the realization of samadhi.
Oh, yeah, that's what we need to do. That's what saying in my day, Banji younger. Any that now, Yamesi, that Lungi Nature, Dorin, the Kirim Shiandu, Lungi Nature, Mashi, Tarsay, or Maresons.
Tarsa yomaris. That is any long trauma to jump.
Lung Jonder Majeva. I don't know what one is someone Jango. It's not the Jonder Majeva, and we were married. Your name of which Langayo Maresons.
More will be presented having to do with the mantrayana's wind exercises, the levels of generation stage and completion stage. And so long as there is no control over subtle moving winds, then there is no realization of the fullness of the path of the mantrayana. One begins in the exercise of the coarse moving winds to develop capacity in control of subtle moving wind.
Oh, yeah, I think the Lungi Nature. Yamlenchola, in Jimmy, chewing your method, get corners, looking your men chain, the lung jogging your men set top than the chew, then they came out and looking in the chin, double total, loon around to it, and we are response.
Even without accepting dharma per se, through exercise of the moving winds, in no relation to training in dharma otherwise, through simply exercising the moving winds, high levels of realization may be achieved.
Oh, that is saying that you go in that. 난 제시에 연구를 했습니다.
Yet again, in the future, this explanation will come again.
제가 신발이 그랬습니다.
Other question?
이게 한 얘기를 했습니다.
Thank you so much. This is complicated. And I think it's going to take us quite a while to understand and get to know it and understand it. So there was a lot of material right here. And for example, when it was mentioned that we train our body both force and subtle physical states. So does that mean we train our body through the wind, force and subtle wind? Because here, the physical states here, my understanding from listening is, and it may not be correct, is that it's the wind. So if it's force physical state, that means force moving wind corresponding with force state of consciousness or force mind. Whereas the subtle physical state, which is subtle moving wind, corresponding with subtle mind. Is my understanding correct?
이제 이게 저자디 녀생 제와라 녀생 첨보래 다 아니 맞아 계속 변다 또야라 뒤서 뭐 거르게 다 간신은 남샵 계신 게 버래 다 나는 게 거야라 다 직진은 거실로네 야만에 직진은 거샤던 노르네 노리나 따따따 하고 뭐서 있나요? 거 덴스 차요 아 맞아 디 le rakwa dans sim rakwa le chama dans sim chama ni yo yo ah dineya 디 맞아 디 le rakwa di jondar chegre 덴 다시 코소 le rakwa di jondar chegona 아니 룽 rakwa di jondar chegoba 다 되네요. 아니 이 루 참모 존달 제거나 되네요. 룽 참모디 아니 존달 제거바. 어디 차서. 다 지금생 가르르스나 데다 루 라과 존달 지참 제바 데라 파페 대참게 아니 심 라파기 랑왕 토기래 다 자와 덴디스 체네 디 가르스라브레 랑왕데 토기래 다니 고샤탄데 간데 디르베 디서버샤소네
그래. 나 들었지. 나 정보지라는 게 맞아. 그 거래 가보를 세저로디 다 수수기 좀 봐. 냠내나. 수수수기 니만에 냠내 제외는 뭐 아주 숙심부 제외는 대세기 냠내 숙심부 나오면 원래 용으로 와서 뭐 찍었습니다.
First, you describe how difficult this is to comprehend. How difficult it is to comprehend depends ultimately upon the energy with which you practice daily. Insofar as the daily practice is disciplined, then it will come to be understood.
yes. 이 냠내 수치에는 빌려 또 버째라는 냠내 마시는 또 버째야 돼요 말이야. 냠내 제니 또 버째 많이요 요 말이야. 세상 일이 냠년 수수 제와 제배는 들 또가 제 유바디 이 뭐에니 지지 그래서
Whoever practices will realize this when one cannot realize this, and there is no such thing as practicing and never realizing. That's the actual state of affairs.
뭐야 다 디네 걔랑 저와서 노시가 더 봐이나 다 통고 걔랑 고단 노르마레 대가라래 아 디인지 걔랑 다 뉴라고 단단한 쪽에 류 참모들라 류 참모다 셈 참모라 맞으기 남산 거기 라고 창초죠 요 말에 오 다만데 셈 참모다 류 참모가 내가 제발라 류라고 셈 참모라 랑 망고 톱네 원래 정도는 망고 제나만도 참모가는 어디 내가 지투기 말해서
And then addressing the actual question itself, nowhere are you wrong. You have got it exactly. For control over physical and mental states, in order to detect subtle physical states and subtle mental states, one must engage in exercises to gradually develop more control.
뭐야 딱이 간다 락바네 락바라야 락바 참모라고 저들이 이거 망고요 근데 락바네 간 간다고 락바 지가 니가 순간에 락바 막 차를 땅 아니 참모가 하고 그래서
There are coarse states developing from other coarse states, giving rise to more coarse states giving rise to coarser states, and so on. And then coarser states attenuating into subtler states and subtler states. Now, the exercise is to deactivate a coarse state and deactivate the next coarse state. And through the deactivation of coarser states, finally alight upon subtle states.
뭐야 제가 근데 인도 다 나도 먼저 다들 시에고 윤신들의 그런 거 그런 드라마만 나고 팀림 기준 바 시에는데 팀림디 라원 내가 팀림 연단 찍단 랑게 정대로 친 팀림 연단이 가진 거 제시 약사로 와서
And the reason this explanation is given at all, and the explanation of the dissolution stages, is for the reason that there is dissolution that is involuntary, and then there is the dissolution stages which are voluntarily induced.
뭐야 세상 대도 다 맞아 수수가 라원 체네 롱 드름디 체라 나 담고 맞아 롱 라바디 세 장사들 롱 라바디를 세 장나는 거 라바디 라바네 차도 땅에 아니 참으로 되지 땅 돼야 되지 답시 치고 해서
What one must do is exercise increasingly subtle manipulation of the moving winds as part of exercise of the voluntarily induced dissolution stage.
근데 이제 좀 맞아 간다 수수가 롱이 좋아 롱 중국들 한다 아마도 롱 중국들 아니 수수가 정도로 롱 무비야 돼 너무 중국 아니 롱네 아니 롱 파트야 땅 어디를 지나 땅보다 내지 자 니네 거 두주 가마직 니 가마니 아니 추주 얘네 니 추주 직니 순전 그것이 아니 주제 바르고 좀 장고를 막도 당물 남산에도 되려 말해서.
And then the exercise of the moving winds through inhalation and exhalation. Inhalation and exhalation may be used as basis of training. One inhales, holds the inhaled breath, then exhales. And this is a beginning point. One does this for a minute, increases the time to 2 minutes, increases it again to an hour, to 2 hours. It isn't as though without the exercise, one can immediately control their breath.
뭐 일단 이제다 한다 룽디 교와 지나도 아주다 지나다 팀을 가지고다 때 진지만도 연구 말해 이내 땅 아주 나게 기름들을 그냥 내나 세계나 룽이 저러다 지나 룽이 토네 룽주르기 토네 아니 바게 내가 제 되야가가 다조네 나 내저다 제네 연구 여러 이제 좀 많이 가져다 니만니마도 수수비 냠내나 나 라면내죠 냠내지도 아니 룽조고 냠내다 그래서 가가 냠도 연구가 여래 그러니까 간다 간쪽에 수수비 다 랑이 쪼와 가서 침부 채워 있는 대나시 그 요아데 냠내데 충분히 연구로 와 랑이 당원에 냠내 춘지만도 채면 아니 좋아 침부도 용투고 말아서는 뒤니 하나도 이만이면 나 만다 배나 가지고 이만치 나는 차샤와 있는 만족에 내 맞지 나랑 아주 좋아나라 이도 좀 봐. 아주 팀링 좀 봐. 거기 팀링 냠내 제가 좀 봐. 때때때 지고 지켜한다 연구요 말도 저도 연구. 그냥 만족에 지 거기 무슨 내가 아주 팀링 좀 봐요. 영사기 그냥 아주 전부 계도도 팀링 좀 봤는데 지금 연구요. 아니 아주 어머 냠조르기 좋아지도 팀을 좀 봐주지 다 수수가 수고 세게 좀 팀을 좀 영화 마고 시샤로 제가 이도 가지고다 나는 저 가르치기나 건강을 이도 맞다 아주 팀을 좀 봐주 냠내도 시샤도 좀 그런 게 있으면 셈봐 아니 나게 이만이만 냠내나 노스키니 근데 장거래스 알듯이 좀 봐.
Exercises of moving winds are involved in generation stage practices. The generation stage practices and the whole context of the mantrayana involves exercise of moving winds. Exercise of moving winds incorporated into daily practice. The incorporation of the exercise of the moving winds is part of the Anattara Yoga Tantra. And insofar as the feeling for the practice is very great, then it will follow that one, in fact, practices in such a way as to make progress without a feeling for the greatness involved in the practice. There won't be the deliberate incorporation of practices on a daily basis, but on a daily basis, there are many events that resemble the dissolution, the involuntary dissolution phase. They aren't identical to this dissolution phase, but they resemble it. Therefore, when one goes unconscious, there is a moment resembling dissolution. In coitus, there may be a moment resembling dissolution. In physical experience, in many daily activities, there are moments when the dissolution stage makes its appearance, and so that you remember that it may, and daily incorporate practices in dissolution. I make this presentation.
아니 이시되는 이 두부 구도도 셈เป็ 소아즈 거라 가나 아니 셈 지구만 내가 차기로 아니 아니람 땅에도 셈티스 라르도 라르 치면 그 자와직 치고 셈이 내가 치되고 아니 되네 Okay, you say on you same better, but want to do what is that? Or the need to the mother in that same Tara soon, but we are the source. You do
And in sleep state too, there is a sequence through coarse states of conscious awareness into subtler states of conscious awareness, such that deep sleep involves no feeling, is only a mental state. The dreaming state involves more coarse conscious awareness, and then upon awaking into the waking state, states of conscious awareness have become overall coarse again.
끝나십니다. 근데 지금도 치료를 뭐 세샤르비 다 가서 틀림 아마 셰바 참을 봐 템도도 틀림 연나로 디도도 셰바 라관에 라 참은 참으세요. 아니 시도 참으세요. 무슨 근거 봐서 템림 무슨 거로 연단 찍어요. 그래서
And in death's clear light dawns after a sequence of the emergence of ever more subtle states of conscious awareness, the subtle state attenuating again to a subtler state, and again to a very subtle state. This progression, or this sequence in the death state,
또 신에다 한달 랑이 냠는 가지지 요아 쭉 제외나 텔레파바기 아니 냠는 쇼친 뭐 요거 아니 냠는 수주가 체도 예바서나 다 거기 냠는 체대 수주 체 예바 체고 수주가 요아 체 예바잖아 냠는 체 예바 차도 그래서 니나시 하나 가나도 아니 직 거기 니마지기 나 주전이 잡히나는 아니 수주가 있다 냠는 체야기 주주디 하자는 유유지디 아주 다 수수 셈나 다딩에 용기 말에 등에 지투고 말에 삼고 한 번에 말아도 선배나 여러 되게 세는 아주 뺐다 냠내 체야 아주 내버려 용연하면아디 땅에 이 용기 말하다 내 지투고 말에 땅에 단다 지금에 제만 지촉을 삼고 어떻게 만들어 냠내 체야 바지 치쇼디 어디 송이요 내 송이
insofar as there's a dedication to applying oneself, insofar as one is dedicated to applying oneself, then there will be a corresponding development in realization. The interest in application will be the measure by which one will later know any realization or not. And in 24 hours, when we dedicate only a very short time to these exercises, naturally, we find the practices themselves implausible. We imagine that they are not realistic, that we cannot realize them, that it will do just as well to begin another time. And these thoughts are the greatest obstacle to progress. And now we will close with our closing prayers and the very same material, the series involved here will come up again in the future, and as it does, it will only grow clearer. We have what we need in my consulting with reference texts and you bringing your questions, and in this exchange we will continue to clarify anything that isn't yet clear and improve in our understanding. And in this way, our analytic meditation will be deepened. Thank you very much, and now allow us to recite our closing prayers.
Lume mare je don rowa ye na re jave wombo na juje ema sumbe zera kudu ya jave yamje tsewe je Pembe rinpo kusan lam je jo nyene gube je na nye je Dagi je je dobe lam je ne shura tsawe chave thage je Rove yi je mba se je ne jave tenpa yu rin se yu je Tenpa rin je cho je ma ja ba ja ja nyamba jirve cho Nije jemba yi rama jeba yi vede teje sewa jeba seje gyawe menjung chile le dru chanju lamje rembe gyang tadu nange yela vede ye gyawe zeba rembu gyung gyurje Tansan rube tunjin ruje je gege seje medam meme Sera kundu jave mapa yi namda lamda java mangirji Kanze tiba jala juju je sujin drupa sumba deyze Tuden nangi tatun roje je Taji jasu chugun jagyurji
From my two collections, vast the space that I have amassed from working with effort of the practice for a great length of time. May I become the teaching leading Buddha for all those whose minds' wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my life and my wishes. May I find the best of the paths of complete teaching, and may I please all the Buddhas by practicing. Using skillful means drawn by a strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the path as I have discerned them. May I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread or once spread have declined, may I offer this treasure of happiness to it all sentient beings. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted them this peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by following the complete graduated path of enlightenment and the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings that eliminate adversity and make things conducive for practicing the excellent path, never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may he always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere.
Dagi jinye sabe gyawa di dendan roha guna gambe Kebara jindu losan dhaba yi tebe nimbo rindu seche Kare rawe kurwe shingande pena dewa maru jungwe Tebe sewa tenze gyazo yi shabe side magu tengyur che Yang Papa Jeda Gemba Dao Kundu Zambo Deyang Teji Teda Kunji Jesu Dalo Je Gewa Teda Tamji Radu Tuzu Shebe Gewa Tamji Je Mowa Granda Chodu Ngapa Te Dagi Gewe Sawa Digur Sambo Jeje Radu Ngorari Janju Simcho Rimbo Je Maje Bana Je Yurche Yewa Nyamba Neva Kone Kondo Bewa
I dedicate whatever virtues I have ever collected for the benefit of the teachings and of sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. In the land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. all powerful genius, tints and council, please remain until cyclic existence is ended. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantavajra too realize things as they are, also I dedicate all these merits in the best way, that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with the dedication raised as the best by the victorious thus gone ones of the 3 times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva deed. May the supreme jewel of Bodhisattva that is not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more.